Welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna and today we're visiting with Dr. Chris Teutsch. He's with the University of Kentucky's Extension Forage Specialist there. One of the things we're going to talk about might not be on everybody's mind, and that's how to drought-proof your pastures. With all the rain that we've had, it's kind of hard to think that we might have a drought, but in Kentucky, it's certainly possible.
My old farm manager used to say we're always 2 weeks away from a drought, and there's a lot of truth to that statement. So drought's part of our agricultural landscape, short-term drought stress, and in thinking about how we're going to manage that in grazing systems is important in being prepared for that drought. So often we react to drought, but how do we plan for that drought and how do we increase the drought tolerance of our pastures? One of the most important ones that we can do is good grazing management, so good rotational stocking. And I know everybody's thinking, well, that doesn't sound like a real drought proofing practice, but really when we manage our pastures well, we're doing several things. So we're improving the root system of the plant. When we graze it and we leave a little bit of residual area and then we move on to another paddock, we're increasing the size of our root system. And that larger root system can find water when continuously stocked pasture that has a smaller root system cannot find water. So grazing management is really important. The other thing grazing management does is we leave more residual in the soil so we don't graze it quite as close. And that has several effects on the pasture. So when we have more residual leaf area in that pasture, we're promoting regrowth by having a larger solar panel remaining. But we're also modifying the microclimate at the soil surface. So we don't often talk about that, but we change the temperature of the crown of the plant. So on a hot day in the summer, we measured crown temperatures at the soil surface of 120 degrees versus less than 100 degrees when we leave 4 to 5 inches of residual. So we really modify that microclimate. Having residue also reduces soil evaporation of water from the soil. So that's another mechanism by which we increase drought tolerance. The third mechanism that I wanted to talk about in terms of grazing management is when we have good grazing management, we tend to have better soil structure in that pasture and increased water infiltration rates. So we don't often think about that, but one of our primary focuses of good grazing management should be not letting any water run off our farm. Yeah. And when we have good soil structure, that water goes into the soil rather than running off the soil and away from the farm.
Because when we are in those hot, dry situations, we might get an inch of rain, but if our soil can't absorb that and utilize that,
exactly,
then we're in a drought situation when we're not really. And improving that, I think, is something that we can do in Kentucky. It's just those steps to do that. Rotational grazing also helps with that nutrient management, kind of moving that around to help improve the soil structure as well. And so I do think it's probably something that we do need to give more thought to in our pastures.
Grazing management is probably the biggest part of that. Other things that we can do to improve drought tolerance of grazing systems is incorporate some warm season grasses into grazing systems. Warm season grasses grow during the middle of the summer, so they're going to have optimum growth around 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when our cool season grasses kind of slump in their growth. They have slower growth. Really, when we get over about 80 degrees, our cool season grass growth really declines. So our warm season grasses grow well in the summertime, but the most important part in terms of drought management is they grow with less water. So they produce about twice as much dry matter during the summer months per unit of water used compared with a cool season grass. So they're much more efficient at using smaller amounts of water that come along during the summer months.
Yeah, and some people might be resistant to put those into their pastures, but you've done some research saying that works.
It certainly does. So we've done a lot of summer annual research, and summer annuals are a good fit in grazing systems as part of a renovation cycle. So usually we've always got an area on the farm that needs to be reseeded. So if we can take that area, maybe spray it out in late spring, early summer, plant some summer annuals, that'll give us some good grazing over the summer months, and then come back into that area and reseed a permanent cool season sod in the fall. That's a great way to use summer annual crop in a grazing system.
Yeah, and you might have more success with establishment that way as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.